My name is Jacopo Poli. On behalf of my family, I'm very happy to be here for my first time in Bulgaria to talk about my products. It's a family business. In the middle, there is my mother. Yesterday, she turned 86, and she is the column of the distillery. Then there is my brother, Andrea. He is the technician of the company. My sister, Barbara, she takes care of the administration. My wife, Christina, she's in charge of the 2 Grappa museums. And I'm the one that chats. I do nothing. They work. I'm traveling. The core business of the distillery is Grappa. In Bulgaria, you have rakia. So Grappa is the equivalent of the Bulgarian rakia. The name Grappa comes from the Venetian word graspe. Graspe means the skin of the grape. So what is left after pressing grape and making wine. There are many grape varieties, and therefore there are many wines. And as a consequence, there are many grappas. There is not only one grappa, but there are many grappas. And today we will go through just 4 of them from the same company, but it would be very interesting to taste grappas coming from different distilleries, different regions, in order to appreciate the differences among each single product. We will go through we will follow a kind of guideline that is magically composed by the 6 letters that compose the word Grappa. So first of all, geography, the G for geography, where Grappa is made, where the Poli distillery is located, how deep are our roots in that area, and how came that my family got involved in the Grappa production. A for actuality, artisanality, 2 words. Actuality means that the Grappa evolved over the years, over the centuries. The Grappa that we are going to taste today, in my opinion, is better than the one that my father was making in his days. But to be more precise, I should say that the Grappa that my father used to produce was a quality Grappa for his customers. In those days, when people used to drink Grappa to warm up in the very cold winters that we have up in the northern part of Italy, that's where Grappa is originally coming from. But nowadays, because of the global warming, we don't need to drink Grappa to warm up anymore. We don't need Grappa at all. Grappa, as any other spirit, is a superfluous product. So the reason why we sip a glass of Grappa today is completely different compared to the reason why people used to drink Grappa in the past. Nowadays, we sip a glass of Grappa to enjoy a pleasure, to have a pleasant sensation, to have a nice relation with people around the table, okay? So the way we make Grappa today is different. And I'm also sure that the Grappa that my son will be making in the next future will be better than mine, because we are still improving our techniques of distillation. The Poli distillery is the only distillery in the world where there are 3, and in the future 4, different methods of distillation. And these allow to produce different styles of Grappa, but not only Grappa. This is a very unique distillery because it's the only distillery where you can find Grappa, but also wine brandies, gin, and whiskey. Our goal is to create an affinity, a relation between the taste of that specific Grappa and the taste of that specific customer. So we go through these 6 aspects, starting from the geography. Where are we located? We are at the foot of the Dolomites, at the foot of the Alps, the northeastern side of the Alps. In the city of Bassano del Grappa. Bassano del Grappa is the only place in the world that carries the name Grappa in the name of the city. According to the tradition, that is where Grappa was born. Now, spices were used to give a better taste to food, to meat, to fish, but also to give a better taste to wine. The wine in those days, in the 15th, 16th century, was not the same quality of wine that we are enjoying today. And that is the reason why it was flavored with botanicals. The word vermouth, and we have a vermouth here, so the first product to taste is the ruby red vermouth that you have on the left. And vermouth is an aperitif because aperitivo comes from the Latin aperire, that means open. Aperitivo means to open, to prepare your stomach. This vermouth is based on red wine. You might think it's normal, which is not. The majority of the red vermouth are based on white wines. Very often they are very cheap wines, and is colored with caramel. While in this case, we are using a DOC Merlot wine from the nearby region of Bassano de Grappa, and we put in infusion 33 different botanicals. The two main ingredients will always be alcohol and water. And a bottle of 40% of alcohol has 60% of water. So the quality of the water plays a very important role. Not really in the nose, but mainly in the mouth, in the palatability. So in the roundness, in the softness. And we are very lucky because we have a water that is very pure, because nobody is living up in the mountain because there is no water up there. As a matter of fact, in 2021, the Mount Grappa has been declared by UNESCO a natural reserve of the biosphere. Bassano is an historical middle-age town, very well known for Grappa, but I would say even more for that bridge that crossed the river that comes through the valley. That bridge is a national monument. It was built 500 years ago by a famous architect. His name was Andrea Palladio. This is the only covered wooden bridge existing in Italy. And it is very famous because there is a tradition. According to this tradition, when you cross the bridge, you should hold the hand of the person that you love, and when you are in the middle of the bridge, you should exchange a kiss of love. Okay? So every evening, every day, there are couples flirting in the middle of the bridge. So it's a very romantic place. If you will come to Bassano, please follow the tradition. Okay? Bene, my family has been living in the very same area for hundreds of years. The first member of the family that we were able to track back was this guy, Gasparo. He was living in the 14th century. He was a very poor guy, so poor that the local church offered him a piece of land to cultivate. And so he was a farmer, as well his son and his grandson. His grandson, Polo, was a good farmer. He worked very hard, to the point that he was able to put together 4 pieces of land, 40 sheep, and 3 cows. Okay. So he was making milk and cheese. So the family has been producing milk and cheese for generations. But he was quite a wealthy guy for those days. 4 pieces of land in those days was a kind of fortune, and that was the reason why his name, Polo, that means Paul, became the family name, Poli. Poli in Latin simply means son of Polo. So after Polo, Antonio, Battista, Antonio, Zuan, and so on. And this is the last part of the family tree. I'm there. My father's name was Antonio. He was son of Giovanni, son of Giobatta, son of Giovanni, son of Giobatta, son of Giovanni, son of Giobatta. The names are always the same. Giovanni, John. Giobatta is John the Baptist. You know, in the, how do you say in...
Johann Cristito.
Okay. Giobatta is Johann Cristito. So among the many Giobattas, there are 2 that played quite an important role. This guy, He was the one that decided to leave the fields, the agriculture, and he opened an osteria. An osteria is a place where you can have wine by the glass. And that was in 1818. And his grandson, my great-grandfather, he was still there selling wine in this osteria. So he had good relations with the wineries because he was selling wine. The osteria was located in front of a train station. And this is the guy that got the idea of buying from the wineries not only the wine, but also the skin of the grape, the gibri, you say gibri. He bought a mobile still, and thanks to this ambulance still, he could go door to door, distilling the skin of the grape, the gibri, right there where the grape was pressed. You can see him in front of his apparatus and his team. For fiscal reasons, mobile distillation was abolished because the government could not check how much grappa was made, how much taxes had to be paid. And this is the reason why he had to find a place where to install a stationary still, a fixed still. When Giobata, the founder, had to find a place to install a stationary still, he bought a farm that was behind the osteria. And instead of the cows, he installed the pots that we are still using. This was my grandfather. He was selling grappa in Brazil in the 30s. You know, many Italians from the northern part of Italy emigrated to South America. In Brazil, there is a large community of Venetian people, and that's why he began to export grappa over there. This was the very first truck in town that he used to transport the grappa and to carry the gibri to the distillery. And he was also the first to have a private telephone. The telephone number of the distillery was very easy to remember, number 2. Can you imagine to have the telephone number 2 today? Number 1 was the telephone number of the telephone operator that was located 7 kilometers far from the distillery in a nearby town. So for a certain period of time, the distillery and the telephone operator, they had to speak each other. There was nobody else to speak with. Then over the years, more phone joined the network. Anyway, one day, my father had to make a very urgent phone call. On the other side, there was the telephone operator. And luckily for him, that day, the person that answered was not the telephone operator, but his daughter, that sometime was helping the parents to do this job. And she had to connect people. And there was a line of people waiting to be connected. And my father was in a hurry, and he insisted to skip the line, to be connected first. And she was young, she was 19, and she broke the rules and put him in connection first. So the day after, my father called her back and said, I would like to thank you very much for your nice gesture. Can I offer you an ice cream? What an innocent proposal. But my father was 40 and she was 19. So the day after, they met. And she let him wait outside for more than 1 hour. And he was very patient. Anyway, they met, they got this ice cream together, and 1 year after, they were married. So that's how my father met my mother, because of the telephone connection. We have the classic non-aged young grappa, like the first that we just enjoyed. Then we have the aged grappa, that is the case of Salpaoro. Then we have the grappas from aromatic varieties. Aromatic varieties are varieties like Moscato, Traminer, that naturally have certain molecules known as terpeni. These terpenes are in the grape, they go into the wine, they remain captured in the skin, and somehow they go into the grappa, okay? It's a kind of minimum common denominator that links the grape, the wine, and the grappa. The third grappa is made out of Moscato grape. In this case, the aromas are primary aromas. And because of the aging, we have also tertiary aromas. So primary aromas are coming straight from the grape. Secondary aromas are coming from the fermentation of the grape. Tertiary aromas are coming from the aging in barrels, in wood. Okay? So the first grappa, Bassano Classica, has secondary aromas. The second grappa has tertiary aromas. The third grappa has primary aromas. Are you confused enough?
Yes.
Perfetto.
Yes.
Perfetto. So I did right. So this is my father. He also enlarged the still, adding other 4 pots. Let me tell you, everything starts from the gibri. We buy the gibri from the wineries. In Italy, a distillery is not allowed to make wine. A winery is not allowed to make grappa. From 100 kilograms of grapes, on average, you get 25 kilograms of gibri and 75 liters of wine, on average. Those 25 kilograms of gibri will turn into 2-3 bottles of grappa. The 75 liters of wine will become 100 bottles of wine. So the relation between grappa and wine is 3 to 100, more or less. What we do is to use a still. A still is an apparatus that is needed to warm up and to cool down. As simple as that. Typically, a pot still, like the one that we use, is made of 5 elements: the pot, the column, the condenser. These elements where we remove the first, the middle, and the final fraction, and the final container. So what we do is to put the gibri as it comes from the winery. We are not allowed to add water, we are not allowed to add sugar, we are not allowed to add aromas. As it comes, boom, into the pot. We warm it up using steam, and the steam carries out the aromatic elements into this column that is needed to get rid of the water, because we use the steam. But at the end, we need to get the alcohol and the aromatic elements. So we have to separate the alcohol and water, thanks to the different boiling point. Water boils at 100 Celsius degrees. Alcohol boils at 78 and something. And therefore is lighter and goes up. Water is heavier, stays down. And that's how we are able to capture the aromatic elements and the alcoholic part that is then condensed. And this is where we remove the first fraction, known as head. This is the flowing steam pot still. Over the centuries, at the beginning there were 3 pots, then 4, then 8, now we have 12. But the 3 original ones that were installed in 1898 are still in function. And this is the still that we are using for the 2 grappas that we had, Bassano Classica and Sao Paulo. Then we have other 2 stills, 2 ways of cooking. Bain-Marie, this is the one that we use for making whiskey and brandy, wine brandy. And vacuum Bain-Marie. This is the one that we use for making Cleopatra, the grappa that we just tasted, and gin. What is the difference between flowing steam pot still and Bain-Marie? flowing steam pot stilled. You have the pot, you put the skin, the gibri, the steam goes through and carries out the aromas in a very energetic way. Bain-marie, you have two pots, a bigger pot and a smaller pot, and one is next into the other. And you put the gibri into the smaller pot, and the steam doesn't go directly into the smaller pot, but goes all around in between the larger and the smaller. The name bain-marie comes after a Jewish alchemist. Her name was Miriam, Marie. And she was inspired by women that are pregnant, and the baby is into a kind of double chamber, well protected and warmed up in a smooth, nice way. So bain-marie warms up, is a kind of hug. It's a very sweet way to warm up. The other still, Chrysopea, is a vacuum bain-marie. Chrysopea was the name of the very first steel ever designed in history. It was designed by an Egyptian alchemist. So Cleopatra, in this case, is not the famous queen of Egypt that everybody knows. She was another Cleopatra. She was an alchemist, living in the very same period of Miriam. They were writing letters each other. And Cleopatra was the very first person to describe a steel. The name that she gave to her steel was Chrysopea. In Greek, chrysos means gold. Peos means to make, to produce. So Chrysopea meant gold maker. It was a steel aimed at producing, at making gold. What is the technical difference? Here we have a pressure. Here we have a vacuum. Vacuum means that we suck the air out of the steel and we create a vacuum, and this allows to lower the temperature of distillation. Here we distill at 100 Celsius degrees. Here we distill at 50 Celsius degrees. The thermodynamic of the distillation is completely different, and the kind of aromas that we can capture are different. Okay? So the fourth Grappa is another Cleopatra. We have two Cleopatras, from Moscato and from Amarone. So Moscato, Grappa, Cleopatra is very fruity. Tropical fruit. You might catch the aroma of lychees, mangoes, papaya, peaches. So it's extremely fruity. Amarone is thicker, more embracing. It's like a velvet jacket. The aroma are more nutty, reminds of walnuts, hazelnuts. It's more complex. The percentage of alcohol is exactly the same. The four Grappas has the same percentage of alcohol. I had 1 hour, 1 minute. 1 hour. One question? Any question?